Hi there, this is Michael Mirdad. Thanks for joining us for our Friday Night Spiritual Insights with Michael Mirdad. We're going to share a topic that's, I think, really beautiful and really deep in so many different ways, which is along the lines of understanding how consciousness works. And so I'd like to have you, in a sense, a little more exploration and interaction, like workshop almost, for today's presentation. So if you happen to have a notepad, just a simple piece of paper would be fine. A pen, it's just simple. What's available to you. Grab that, and I'd like you to explore something with me. And it's something that, if you really get this, I swear it's going to just change everything for you. How you understand things, how you understand the concept of responsibility, or the concepts of oneness, the concepts of consciousness, and so on. Really powerful stuff. So I would say the first thing to do on your piece of paper is you can draw a little circle in the middle. And that'll be our reference point. From there, just that one little reference point, that dot in the center, circle in the center. Now, if you don't mind, let's take a moment to think about anything that's ever happened to you that you believe would be significant. But give me a minute to explain all this. And some things we're going to talk about your future dreams. We're going to talk about things that have gone well for you, things that haven't gone well, just all for a moment, a little bit of exploration, experiential, we'll call it. Now, let's think back. How far back could you imagine going? And we're going to use, because I'm facing you, so it's opposites for me, but we're going to use what would be your far left side of your piece of paper. Maybe you'll turn the paper landscape, horizontal, sideways. So at the far left side, let's just draw a little X or something somewhere off to the side, and we'll sort of title it or label it. And let's use it to imagine that has to do with your earliest lifetimes. Do you believe it would have been Lemuria, like most people when they finally come to Earth? You might even be drawing star systems, meaning the name of a star system, not drawing the whole star system, but you might have a strong affinity to something before you even came to Earth. And some of this, may sound far out for some of you, but things you don't agree with or believe in, just ignore that part and just try the parts you do agree with. So, maybe you say, I've always had a feeling for the Pleiades or Arcturus as a star, or, Orion or whatever, and you can draw that maybe to the far left side of your paper. But then, coming this direction, towards the center a little more, just a little bit, your next item. Lemuria, maybe. If you feel an affinity, Lemuria would be an ancient civilization, the most ancient on Earth, really. But that's, just so goddess-like. Just this beautiful love of nature, people living in tune, not even being solid beings, somewhat ethereal. And it sort of sounds Eden-like, and it was very Eden-like, but just the lush life, oneness. People, when they felt a lack of resonance or wholeness in their being, homeostasis in their being, ill health in other words, they just used tone and vibration, color, essence to adjust those, frequency, vibration, to adjust those imbalances and bring them back to balance. Very beautiful. And then, without elaborating too much, do you feel a resonance to Lemuria? Then, maybe a little X in Lemuria. And then, closer to the center circle, Atlantis. Leave plenty of room, because there's a few stops we'll make, right? So, do you feel an affinity to Atlantis? Whether it was Atlantis, the technology, or Atlantis sometimes aggressive, Atlantis sometimes just a very evolved civilization. Kind of imagine ancient Greece times 100, times 1,000, and that's Atlantis. And the technologies, though, the buildings of that still last to this day from tens of thousands of years ago. So does that feel a resonance? The Mediterranean area, all the way from the, what we think of as the Mediterranean, because the Mediterranean was heavily affected by Atlantis, but it's in the Atlantic Ocean, all the way towards the Mediterranean and all the way to the United States, east coast of the United States. So maybe you fill in a little check, X or something, and write Atlantis. And, if other thoughts come up spontaneously, wonderful feelings, lots of growth, aversions, yucky feelings, whatever comes up, just scribble a few words next to those X's as we're making them. And then we'll just kind of fast forward to what we call now ancient history, which is the real ancient history is Atlantis, Lemuria, and all that. But what becomes more a modern version of ancient history, because Atlantis ends with the deluge, right? Destruction, the flood, even though there were a few of them, a few submergences of Atlantis. Does that ring a bell? If so, a few notes. Maybe it pops into your head that you have a fear of water. Not that that's the only reason that it might be, but just if that pops up when you're thinking about Atlantis, I'd write it down. So then, moving right along, ancient history. So now, is it ancient Babylon, Sumeria, Egypt, what we call ancient, which isn't really that ancient compared to the others, but they go back thousands of years. Does that resonate? Or is it ancient like South America, even before what we know of as Peruvians, even before the Andean region as we know it, the Inca as we know it, in the Central Americas, all these different places, the Mayan or the Aztec, does it go back pre-names as we know them? And, we're just sort of moving forward to where you look at Persia, ancient Persia, Middle Eastern, the music of Persia, belly dancing, courtesan kind of vibe, or whatever feels resonant, little X, and maybe ancient Persia. Maybe you'd write a date, 5000 BC or something like that. Just think about it, or a few thousand BC, depending on the culture you're talking about. And, a few thousand BC, you start developing much more, Egyptian and so on. 1000 BC, you're talking, that's where the Hebrew history is really starting to get locked in. The time of King David and all. Do you feel an affinity to, ancient Israel, and there's ancient like Egypt, and then there's less ancient, obviously different time frames. Some people call it early, Egyptian empire, latter, middle, etc. So, just get a feel for those ideas, all right? And then, and again, it could be ancient Nordic region. It's not like it has to stay to the Mediterranean. Just see what you feel. And then think in terms of getting a little more and more to the time of 2,000 years ago. Do you feel an affinity to the Essenes? Maybe, make a little check there, Essenes. And we're still not at the center circle yet. So if you're having trouble fitting things in, you can move your circle over a little further so we can put a few other items in there if it's all right. That's fine if you need to do that, because you can redraw it later. But so looking at the last, before, now we're around the time of Jesus, the Essenes. And then what about the time of Jesus, the time of Christ? And what do you write? Oh man, strong affinity. Aversion, no affinity whatsoever. Whatever it happens to be. Do you feel like you're not only the Essene time before Jesus, but the time of Jesus? Are you around during the early Christian, what they call the early Christian period? And those people were not called early Christians, actually. To some people maybe, but they were followers of the way. A lot of people don't know that, but even people that profess to know about Christ consciousness, Jesus and all that, they still don't know, but they were known as the followers of the way. And they're followers of the way because Jesus said, I am the way. So you're a follower of Jesus, you're the follower of the way. When you say the way, Tao means the way of God. So when you're saying I'm a follower of the way, you're really saying I'm a follower of the way of God. the consciousness, the truth of God, the Christ consciousness. So it's a really beautiful, profound statement. But, see if that feels resonant for you. And also around, that time, there could be the aversion, there could be Rome. But don't forget, just prior to Rome, ancient Greece, a few hundred years before Rome, all the amazing things, 500 years ago before Jesus, Socrates, Plato, even before them, Pythagoras somewhere in there, right? And Aristotle. And so is that resonant several hundred years before Jesus? And then, the time of Christ, and then the early Christian, and then, you might have heard me talk about these kinds of groups along the way. In some of the history we've talked about in my Christ consciousness courses and so on. But just, kind of playing with this. Do you feel a strong affinity to a culture, to a land, to a landmass, to a continent, to a belief system? Let's not forget China. China. Do not forget the Hindu culture, the Hindu customs. Does that feel strong for you? Ancient India. Oh my God, all the senses, the spices, and sometimes warring tribes that, challenging and warring tribes, but sometimes very highly developed civilizations. You could go all the way back to Brahma, you could go all the way back to the just like the ancient history of parts of India that are forgotten, even some parts that are submerged. Or it might be a little, more modern, let's say hundreds of years ago, or a couple thousand years ago. Just get that feeling. And but China, Mongolia, and there's all these different places. See if something calls to you. But moving right along, do you feel an affinity to Europe, England, Britain? Is it Ireland? Is it Celtic? Is it Druidic? Is it Arthurian? Do you feel France? Gaul or France? Do you feel a call for that region? Do you feel whether it's the arts, in the Renaissance, or an Italian Renaissance, or do you feel a calling, going back 1,000 years ago, say, to the Knights Templar, the Cathars? They all kind of overlapped a little bit, but the Cathars and the Knights Templar, do you feel that? Do you feel the high seas? Were you part of the Knights Templar that became pirates and raiding from the high seas, the governments that tried to oppress them and destroy them as Knight Templars, keepers of the way, keepers of the secret knowledge, do you feel an affinity to the women of Christ shortly after Christ? Magdalene or Mother Mary, do you feel affinities there? But do you feel that Arthurian, that the other would be more time of Christ or just after? Then Arthurian, do you feel the Knights Templar, the Cathars, and then the Knights Templar and all that? Do you feel early American, frontier, actually, colonial? Does the wardrobe, is that vibe there for you? The Revolutionary War and the culture, and or even prior to that, because we were certainly having settlers here even before the war, Revolutionary War. Civil War, does that bring something up for you? See if it does, whether you lived in the South, the North, somewhere on the border. What does it bring up? The colors, the gray, the blue uniforms, does it bring something up? Slavery and the feelings, pro or con, for or against slavery, anything like that. You can use those kinds of things to help you remember. This isn't actually a talk on past lives. I'm just referencing this for a reason. Now, let's just go ahead and fast forward. There's World War I, there's World War II. See if those bring something up. The 20s, the 40s, the little X-20s, something, even aversions. Remember, you might go, well, the early century, industrial age, for example, a major turnoff, so I won't write that down. If it's a major turnoff, you might want to write that down. If it has strong feeling, whether it's for good or ill, positives or negatives, that has strong feelings, I would bring that in as a possibility. So, we've done potentially some history identification up to the time of now, today. Now here's what I'd like you to do. Now we have our circle that is you. There's not a lot we're going to put at the other half of this chart, but the next thing I'd like you to do, try to imagine your ultimate dream of completion on Earth. What would that look like for you? Meaning, I'm returned to an etheric body, still on the earth plane, but an etheric body. It could be, well, the world looks much like it is today. I just feel very healthy and immune to garbage that goes on in this world. It could be, I feel very philosophical. It could be, I'm just a happy mother, whatever you see it to be. But imagine it, if it's your ending, if it's your feeling like it's the ultimate farewell with you and incarnating, what would that look like? Put that all the way to the right-hand side of your page, near the end of the page paper, little X, and then finale or whatever you want to write, final lifetime, and make some notes around that. Feeling this, looking like that, sensing this, awareness, awakening, feeling oneness, feeling connected to Christ consciousness, any of that, perfect. Just make note. And then, between the circle that represents you and that finale, that end circle, you have some space, presumably. Maybe in there somewhere you can make an X, and that would be your evolving self, the one that's further than today but not quite as far as the finale one. So somewhere in there you write a note like healthy, whole relationships, wonderful practice of my work, or fulfilling my soul's purpose. Write those kinds of things if you don't mind. And if you don't mind, maybe where you've put that X and that notes about that self that's improving, could you just below that an X, and let's call that challenges, challenging people or challenging circumstances, challenges. And what then would you write there? What would be the biggest challenges to keep you from getting to that place that we're describing as being, you growing? Okay? Some challenges. Just try to be spontaneous. You can always work more thoroughly on this later, but challenges, what would those look like? Could be, I would be tempted by what to get to where I want to go. I'd be tempted, distracted by potential, and don't be afraid of writing it. Be honest. I could still see where relationships could be my challenge, partnerships, or I really have to sort out parenting before I could expect to improve as much as I'd like, and so on and so on. Whatever you think / assume might still be challenges for you. Okay, almost done. Now back to our circle that represents you in the middle. How about, let's sort of think of this as current time. Name, and this time we're going to go up, a couple X's maybe, to some of your most positive thoughts and experiences today. Wonderful partnership, or working on soul's purpose, it feels great, or I'm really a very positive person. Thoughts. So write something like that. Positive thoughts, positive experiences, whatever's happening for you right now. Spontaneous, just kind of let it flow. Scribble it, not a worry, rewrite it later if you like, and you can definitely, like I said, elaborate or expound upon these things later. And then below the little circle that is you, the opposite. Current challenges, thoughts too though, like it could be addictions, self-doubt, whatever might come up, addictions, self-doubt, grief, triggers towards anger. This would be, we'll call it negative emotions, patterns, experiences, still kind of there or haunting you a bit. Okay? Take a minute, fill that in. And then let me explain what you are doing. The last thing I'm going to ask you to do, you have your piece of paper, and even if you just did it in your mind, if you didn't have paper, just understand you can still do this. Just draw a circle around everything on the paper. Or you could just imagine the whole paper is that circle, for that matter, even though it's not round. So that's all encompassed, okay? Now, hypothetically, the circle in the middle, I said, would be you. What if the whole paper, the whole circle is you and not just the center circle? So this is the difference between humans and spiritual beings. This is the difference between victims and co-creators. Victims and humans think that they're the little dot with things happening to them. Spiritually awakened people go, you breathe in, you breathe fully, and you realize, wow, hold it. The whole thing is you, and I'm going to add another phrase for that. This is all your mind or your soul. You didn't have a relationship. It was a part of you. You didn't have an experience. It was a part of you. You're not the victim of, I have certain thoughts or addictions. This is you. These things are happening within you. The only reason you went to Lemuria or ancient Greece or Babylon or this or that, the only reason you have an aversion to World War II, the only reason you feel you were a culture that was enslaved, anything that you saw and checked and wrote notes on, every bit of that is you, was you, and will continue to be you. Your awakening is within you. Your separating from love is within you. Everything that has ever happened, can ever happen, will ever happen, is all within us. And soak that in for a moment. This isn't just a neat exercise. This isn't just curious. This is the way it is. This is the fact of facts. All other facts are just little things that seem to be happening in the world, but they're all in my belief systems. This is who I believe I am. When you think about DNA, like if you're just a really linear, left brain, three-dimensional kind of person, then you're going to say, well, okay, a good analogy would be DNA. So, I guess I have DNA, and it's DNA from family, and it tells me what I look like and how I act and behave and feel and so on. I have really no sense of free will or whatever. I'm sort of a victim of it. That would be a dense way of saying it. But the truth is, your DNA is this thing, this whole circle, because this whole circle is who I believe I am. And everything that happens in it is the ups and downs of my wrestling with who I believe I am. And what's really astounding is as I heal past lives and heal genetics and heal family of origin and heal my belief systems, and as I heal, this whole picture is going to start having parts erased because it's my mind. And as I heal, when you do things like A Course in Miracles workbook lessons, we're gonna do a whole year course on that soon. So sign up right away if you'd like, and join us on the list of the waiting list for that, because that's going to be profound. But the Course in Miracles workbook, what is that doing? As well as other types of exercises, it's erasing things in that experience, that grand, who am I? And anything that was not love will get erased as you heal, so that it'll shift from what was hurtful, unfortunate, etc. Those get erased pretty soon. It seems like only the good things are left. I can more remember the positives and breathe them into my life today. So the past is positive. Today's effect from the past is a positive effect. And it's like, wow, my choices of today, my beliefs of today are profound. And then my tomorrows start to be less affected by anything else. And they're just free to be inspirations directly from God. That's what's going to happen. First, the negatives that have affected us, and then they start to heal and give way to the positives. First, people are so much affected by their past and by the negatives, then eventually the positives. That's what A Course in Miracles calls wrong-mindedness giving way to right-mindedness. And then we start to live the effect of that. And then eventually this whole thing disappears into light, and what was me turning into light becomes one particle of the entire light that is God. Pretty beautiful if you think about it. Like wow, it all makes sense. It's hard for the human mind to grasp that. By the way, when I was going in this direction from past to the future, and I said up here to the right, let's put some positive experiences, down here to the left, you could to some degree say, this is like your right-mindedness, this is like your right brain, this is like your left brain. Memories of facts and historic things, but hurts, things that aren't going so well. Memories, but also today's things that are coming forward from my past. So I took negative experiences from the past, and without knowing it usually, we bring them forward. They bring forward into us, but they also affect our factual left brain linear mind, where healing often blesses our right mind, our imagination. I'm not trying to make right and wrong between right brain and left brain, because that would make half of my head wrong and half of my head good, right. It's not really that simple linear per se, but it's just to give you some understanding. So think about this for a moment. All of this that happened ever has happened in me. Well, but I'm looking at a tree over there. I'm looking at a bird over there. So it's not even just what's happened in me. In my circle are birds and people and planets and everything in the universe. Right now we're only focusing on our experience in the universe that we're writing down. Believe it or not, the whole universe is also the backdrop of your experience. Because when I went through this lifetime and that lifetime and so on, there was still space and planets and moons. The same moon that I look at today is the same one I looked at yesterday. Same one I looked at 1,000,000 years ago. It's hard to believe, but it's true. Same sun, same stars, the same space, some slight variations. The universe is seemingly expanding, but that also means I am. I'm expanding in my learning, but I'm also expanding further and further from other people in my separation. So when we say I'm expanding consciousness, that's really tricky, because expanding sounds so cool, and it is if you get the understanding right of what it is. But for the ego, to expand means I get further from you. I'm expanding, so I'm going this way, away from you. Where in fact, oneness of God, there's a contraction. So it's kind of a play on words, because contraction can represent fear and intimidation and things like that. Expansion is very beautiful and so on, if that's the context you mean it in. The one I'm talking about, the universe, is expanding, actually means we're stretching further from each other, and that's exactly what we're doing on Earth constantly. So the spiritual interpretation of expansion contraction means, yeah, expanding, it means expansive, I trust, I heal. Yes, that's true on an earth plane. But spiritually speaking, the expansion and separation is actually a symbol of unhealthy. This doesn't contradict the personal version, which is the opposite. It's expansion, healthy, and contraction, we're coming back into oneness again. And that is inevitable. It is going to happen. But human beings are still living the dream, the nightmare of separating from one another, distancing from one another. When human beings think, well, I'm really expanding consciousness because I have another degree or I have another lesson I learned, my interpretation of expansion, our human interpretation, is typically wrong, typically off. Because in our ego pride, we think the more I learn, the more I know. When many mystics have said, the more I know, the less I understand. Okay? Um, it's just beautiful if you really just tune into that. Gosh, the the more I think I know, the more lost I am. The more degrees, the more intellectual and so on. It's the more lost, the more distance I am. The more I study a frog under a microscope, the less I understand it. And now that sounds degrading to those who do that, but I'm going to credit them. They know more of what seems to be factually. Congratulations, I guess. You now know that it looks like a cell is here and a cell is there, and a foot is here and a hand is there, and good for you. I don't know why that feels fulfilling for some people to say I now know the measurement of a toe, of a frog, a knuckle of a frog or whatever, I mean, congratulations, but it's not my thing. It's not what I would call my soul's purpose. So instead, I don't want to know, I want to understand. And that too can be plays on words, because the knowingness of God, yes, I seek the knowingness of God. But, it's, I really want to be, not to think. I want to be. I'm ready to surrender to oneness. And people are finding themselves in that chart we just did. They're here, they're here, whatever, and they're analyzing this event or that circumstance, or my mother and DNA and blonde hair, blue eyes and brown hair and dark skin, light skin, and all these things of facts. And the most you could even do if you pursue that is know more about facts. What's really amazing, and what happened to me, the reason I have only 4 fingers is one was lost in an accident. Fact, done. But that event took place here, not to me. In me, I wondered what it was like to have that happen. I wondered what this was like, or I was conflicted about love, therefore I steered love away, or attracted rejection or betrayal or whatever. I mean, it's all me. Wow. Some of it's really sad and even hard to accept, but it changes your whole perspective on responsibility. Tell me about your life. Let's look at your life. Well, I had a family and they did this to me. Okay. They are you doing something, testing something. Now, in the ultimate sense, the universe, that whole circle, is all of us in that circle experiencing us. We are the circle and we're in the circle at the same time. But I'm not the only one in it. Now, universally, everybody's in there, but they're also me in the circle. Let's pretend there's 1 billion people in my life or in the world or whatever. Put an X for all billion of them in there and they're still in you because you're the circle. But my vantage point of looking into the circle would be different than theirs, because they believe that they're all separated with different things happening within the circle, not knowing it's a circle. Kind of wild, isn't it? So we start to realize everyone that has ever lived is another little X in the picture of the universal circle, just another X, and they're all parts of me. Hitler was an insane part of me. Someone else is a brilliant part of me. Someone else is a creative part of me. All the dualities of life, the greatest healer, the greatest artist, the greatest space traveler, whatever it is. ... Past, present, or future. You can't leave yourself. So my past is technically me, my future is technically me. They're all expressions. Where free will comes in is, I say, I got it. What seemed to be happening to me is me reflecting my decisions. And it's like the Etch-a-Sketch, and to some degree, I change some of that. When I look at history, if I've had a lot of hurts and wounds, that's why it's helpful to be able to look at your lifetimes to see if they're affecting me. I'll shake that side of the Etch-a-Sketch and it fades more than this side. But in the bigger picture, using the metaphor, is shake up the Etch-a-Sketch. And if lines were started over here in my little proverbial Etch-a-Sketch, if lines were started over here, let's pretend I started a line and it started swooping downwards. Hard to make curves on an Etch-a-Sketch, but let's say you can. And it starts to curve downwards, and then it comes up. Technically, that's called a trajectory, or it was up and came down. I set a trajectory in motion. I'm going like this, and I'm starting an upward curve. Free will can change it from having started downward to making it straighter. What does that mean? Well, chances are the lessons I was learning already setting into motion down, down, down until I finally get to the worst of it all and start bringing it up, shake it up. The worst of it all is now wherever I start my Etch-a-Sketch again. I can actually reprogram what happened historically by healing it. It's cheating in the best, most beautiful way of all. I get to go back and change that origin and redirect it forward. Make sense? It's pretty cool, isn't it? When you think about it. Very, very beautiful. I get to change, anything. Now, I should add, when I say you can change anything, some people immediately go, okay, I'm going to do this and change that, in the illusion of life, the illusion that we call life, because it's an illusion, we think it has power, we believe it has power, so it's going to seem harder to change. Like if you're missing a limb and you watch this program, you might say, okay, great, I'm going to have that limb back right now. In the illusion, it's going to seem more challenging for you to reproduce a new limb than it would be for some other things. So I would just start wherever you are. I would just start with tense shoulders. The first miracle might be for you to even notice that. Another miracle might be, as I evolve, might be to go get a damn massage, people. That in itself can be a miracle for some of us. But also taking some time to breathe and practice redoing my mind and thoughts about tensions and stress, and then my shoulders will start to reprogram themselves. And then I can evolve to the point where I don't even have interpretations of stressors, so I don't even get the stress in the first place, the tension in the first place, and that could be an ultimate miracle. In other words, I no longer believe that, and so it isn't so. So there's an evolution to, these events, levels of consciousness and so on, changes, miracles that we'd like to create in our lives. So just, think about that. Think about what you are really capable of doing and then do your best to pursue it. But don't judge the ones you haven't perfected yet. You could improve prosperity. You could improve a sense of self-worth. You could improve a sense of soul's purpose. But danged if those relationships aren't still annoying at times. Don't condemn yourself for what isn't healed yet. Focus on the fact that you worked on others and you raised the bar on those. Then, if I did notice there's an area that's weak, I am going to go after that. I am going to do some work on that. And I'm going to use some of the courage I gained from the things I have accomplished and achieved. Yeah, man, I got it. Wow, that means I can really do this. And I do this all the time. There's times when multiple things, let's say, are kind of funky at the same time in life. Those are seemingly challenging, right? Instead of just kind of one slight annoyance, you got several things happening at once. I will get silent usually, and I will ask to be in a different state of mind while in the stuff. So I choose to change my mind rather than just the events. And by changing my mind, and when I change my mind, danged if it isn't almost every time so that I go minutes later, if not seconds, I just go, geez, this is just so beautiful. I feel great. I feel at peace despite the things outside. The miracles are not necessarily always the outer things shifted immediately. What I pray for, what we need to be praying for, is this inside. It shifts, then all of a sudden I notice I shifted. And that's pretty cool. Then my outside is shifting. And that's the external miracle manifestation of an internal miracle, which is the real direction to go. So whatever you're thinking of, I wish so-and-so hadn't left me. That happened in you. It seemed to manifest outside. but all the events are happening within us. They didn't leave without me already feeling like that's what was going to happen, what I needed to happen, what I believed was going to happen, what I deserved to happen, what they deserved, or something. Something had to convince me that it became a blip, and then it manifested. Still, the thought of it, the feeling of it, the belief of it, and even the manifestation happened within me. People that have violated or betrayed us, how could that be in there? There are more things in heaven and earth that are dreamt of in all your philosophies, man. To know exactly why is not really going to be helpful, as much as the calm acceptance that every bird that falls from the sky is happening within me. Does that mean I'm bad that I killed the bird? You know, it doesn't even mean something bad happened within me. It's not that so much as if I continue to think that it happened externally and I'm a victim of it. Poor bird, look at that. I feel bad. It dying made me feel terrible. And now I'm angry at all the politicians that vote for pesticides, that kill the birds, etc., etc. And the universe, what you're actually doing is destroying yourself. But the universe is just sitting there watching you. Watching you go into a tantrum, watching the bird, which is a test for you that you're creating for yourself. And then you go into a tirade, you know, a rant about the government, everybody, pesticides and hate, you know, Monsanto and poison companies and whatever it is. And the universe is just going, wow, no wonder you have to sleep all the time. You need to rest from all this crap, man. Look at you. You're all so tense. You know, and they pray for a little spiritual rub down on those shoulders of yours. Rest, man, relax. And we're all caught up, just intent on hating, or even when we think we're in love. Oh my God, I met somebody. I'm in love, 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 love. The universe is like, what are you doing? Oh, you know, you're this little center dot falling in love with something else, all within the real you, which is out here. You think you're this, falling in love with that, and yet you're really this. That's got to sound strange on an audio tape. Sorry, folks, that, you know, you're going to hear me say this became that, and you know, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. So you think you're the center circle, falling in love with another particle next to the center circle in the present day, and yet you're actually the full circle, and it's all happening within you. They made me fall in love with them. No, you fell in love with them. It was an experience within you. Then they rejected me. No, you were experiencing a sign, symptom of rejection within yourself. Well, I hate that. Okay, what do we do about it? Here's you, and these things are happening within. They're all you, tests within you, experiences in with you. What can we do about it? First, one of the most important things to heal is to recognize it's all you. It's brilliant if you think about it. Wow, got it. It all symbolizes me. Got it. And it reflects me. So if something I see or experience that I don't like, if there's something like that, I might want to change my vantage point. Instead of thinking I'm in the center looking at these things happening to me, I'm out here watching the whole thing. And I can just go, wow, that already changes me without me even doing anything more. It already calms me and changes me, going, wow. And then you might get a feeling of, okay, well, that's so overwhelming. I'm this whole thing? Seriously? When I looked up at the moon and said, wow, it's beautiful, that was me admiring my own beauty. Yep. Yep. And when I looked at this thing that I thought was horrendous, that was me looking at a part of myself. Yep. And so you're going to go through a point of almost scary awe, like, this is too much. This is wait a minute, what? I can barely even affect, you know, my digestive system, let alone the universe, past life, future life. It's way too much. That's actually not God speaking. That's your ego saying, oh, sweetheart, isn't that just too much? See, that's the problem. God and people that are into God, like Michael, are trying to convince you to take on this huge burden. They just don't love and respect you. They don't feel for you like I do, the ego says. What it's really saying is, I want you to stay small so that you don't have any way of affecting any change into your life. And it does want you to stay small. God's saying, you actually don't understand how beautiful you'll feel when you accept your greatness. But before you accept your positive greatness, you have to accept the greatness of the responsibility that you are the center and the full perimeter of your universe. You know, the ultimate version of that. I am my universe. The universe, yeah, it's reflecting me. It really is. See, the people that teach things like laws of manifestation, in part, what they're saying is, okay, we have a new philosophy, and people are going, "Ooh, this is so cool," because they're saying, here's you, and you have to understand, you create your own reality. But they're still, without realizing it, they're still teaching that there's a you trying to affect something out here, which means there's still effort in you fixing, changing, affecting something. And what I'm saying is, it's so much easier when this is you, and the you that you think wants to create more prosperity, and the prosperity is over here, a raise at work, or it's more abundance, a tax return, or whatever. It's all easier when you realize this is you. You're not here trying to create laws of attraction. You are the law of attraction, because you're attracting your consciousness. And I know that that is partly what people are getting and thinking based on the law of attraction, but most of it is really misled or mistaught. It's not taught in its truest or most grand version. So think about this, guys. And then all of a sudden, you go, wow. It explains synchronicity. Some people that go, oh, you know, I was attracted to somebody, and then synchronicity happened, and it made me believe that I'm supposed to be with them. It's all me. I'm manifesting synchronicities to confirm that I need that person to fall in love with me because I feel lonely, and that's within me, and that person's within me, and you just go, I really don't need anything. This is all me. And I want to get in the synchronicity of God rather than just my own unconscious internal likes, dislikes, demands, attractions. So, you know, yeah, I think I'm going to make some changes by allowing the awareness of who I am and my responsibilities here. This is like, wow, this whole thing is me. There's a part of me that's an addict, and a part of me that created 12-step programs. There's a part of me that will go, and a part of me that doesn't want to go. Wow, it's just connected. Hot sunny days, cold, freezing nights, they're all me, parts of me. This team beat that team, they're both parts of me. What am I really witnessing? All we're ever really witnessing is ourselves. It's all within you. Okay? Beautiful if you think about it. Today, I'd like you to not just stop tuning in when we disconnect the program. You can shut the computer or whatever it is, you know, click off, and then sit down and think about this. Tune into the feeling, the meaning. What if this is true? What if ... What if this is true? What if this is real? What if I am really just seeing myself? Because see, as I'm sitting here, I'm the center of that page, looking at a world that comes way out here, but in fact, this is the one part of me beamed out to reflect out to the outer perimeter, reflecting back, because this is a mirror. This is just a real, kind of like calling it the universe, but it's a reflective. It's just the shell of the universe, the cosmic egg, is reflecting back to me, myself. So I'm here looking out, thinking that stuff isn't real and it's happening to me, when in fact I'm looking out, seeing nothing but the shell, the inner shell of the outer universe, and it reflects back to me. What's beyond the shell? Nothing, because, and you could say everything, but really nothing, because outside of myself there isn't anything. It just gets all intellectual and philosophical to imagine. Beyond the parameter, both, you know, depending on your perspective, but from the furthermost outer parameter of the universe, this line I have drawn is just the line I've drawn in my belief systems. Can it expand? Sure. it can expand, but not beyond its own shell, because the reflection is still the reflection. So the universe doesn't expand by breaking the shell. The shell will always be there because it's the womb. The child has to remain within the womb while it's, embryonic and all that. And we are children of God that have believed that we've become children of life. Now we're living in this cosmic womb of the mother, the universal mother. We're not going to go outside of the womb, because you can't go outside of God. There isn't any such thing, because God is all there is. And my belief of who I am is going to reflect the same belief, the same rule, the same law. That my belief of who I am is my outer reaches, furthest reaches. And so that womb reflects who I am. So yeah, I can't go past the shell, but I can push the shell further. But why? All I'm doing is expanding more of what I believe I am. What I believe I am. Not what I am, what I believe I am. Still a human evolving in this universe, etc., etc. At some point, I can say, it's time to retire it all. I am as God created me. I'm not as I thought I was. I am as God created me. In that moment, the entire thing turns to light, and I reabsorb into the oneness of perfection, love. Not earthly versions of perfection, but something beyond, way beyond human comprehension. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the time. And God bless you, man. And thank you for your commitment to your spiritual path. 1 in every 1,000 that watch a program like this wouldn't believe any of it. They're just, because that's where they're at. And that's still fine. They're thinking fearfully, and really sadfully about who they are, and they're reflecting all kinds of conspiracies and hates, and there's no such thing as love and light, and that's where they're at. That's fine for their circle. And those of you who say, no, this is real spirit, spiritual path, my growth, consciousness, greater levels of responsibility, I get it. God bless you, man, because for now you're the minority. But it only takes the quantum, that shift. It only takes critical mass for us to continue that. All of a sudden, instead of baby steps, quantum shifts for the human race. And we're all going to learn the easy way or the hard way. But when you're affecting not just your universe circle, but remember, they're all overlaid with everybody else's. So when you create enough shift in your reality, it does bleed into other people's reality. At very least, it gives them an opportunity to try something different, think something different, feel something different. And those are immediate people in your life will be the first ones. And they take it or they don't buy into it. Just keep doing your work. Just keep being the real you and turning your universe into light. All right? So anyway, God bless you, and thank you for your support in the work I do, the work I share. All right? Thanks for being a really bright part of my universe. We'll see you. Bye-bye.